Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever in the world you are. Tonight, I would like to talk about the issue of the problem with our opposition party and the electorate itself. In a recent article in Bulawayo 24, the former organizing secretary of CCC, Amos, Chibaya, was posting recently in Mashingo that people follow Chamisa wherever he goes. I'll quickly read the article. Former MDC Alliance and Citizen Coalition for Change organizing secretary Amos Chibaya has claimed that Zimbabweans do not follow political parties or people, but people. Look, at the 2023 elections, there is no MP or councillor who had more votes than Chamisa. That tells you what people in Zimbabwe do not follow a party name, but one who was anointed by God, whether the party is called Mandebvu. Mberikunashe or Mberihakunashe, they follow the leader. He went on to describe how if there was a by-election, and we know there was recent by-elections, and the same MPs were to stand as independent, they will not get the same number of votes that they got in the August. And thus underlying this issue that people follow Chamisa rather than the party, much less his performance. This is at the heart of our failed political system. The Greek philosopher Socrates, said that strong minds discuss ideas, neither minds discuss events, and weak minds discuss people, individuals. We really are stuck in this mentality where we worship individuals to the point of becoming ridiculous. The individual that the Zimbabweans out there are following blindly, Nelson Chamisa, has a track record. He was at the launch of MDC in 1999. And so he has been at the heart of the opposition activism for the last 24 years now. The MDC has failed to implement even one meaningful democratic change in that period, including the GNU when they had the golden opportunity to do so. This is a political reality. What is shocking here is that even now, with the benefit of hindsight, people don't understand that. Why did you vote for the opposition in the first place? Even their party name suggested why the people were voting for them. This is a movement for democratic change. What changes were you looking for? These are the democratic changes to stop Zanu-PF rigging the elections. That was the primary purpose of the opposition. 23 years later, as we witnessed last year, Zanu-PF blatantly rigged the elections because the opposition had failed to implement even one reform. Yesterday on this same program, I was discussing Chamisa boasting that expect no new change until the old guard dies. He had said in his Twitter. That was because he believes, the opposition, Chamisa and company believes they do not have to do anything. All they're waiting for is for the old guard, the Zanu-PF old guard, to die. The opposition, as is presently constituted, feel they do not have to challenge the Zanu-PF. They've been brainwashed with the mentality that Zanu-PF ruling elite fought in the liberation war, and therefore then they deserve to rule. In fact, Zanu-PF leaders believe they have the right to rule. And what we are seeing in the opposition is this mentality that have accepted that Zanu-PF have the right to rule. And this is why Chamisa is saying there will be no change until the old guard dies. The truth of the matter is, of course, the old guard is not folding its hands and has given up power. They're not going to give up power. As we can see, there are many in the in Zanu-PF who claim to have played a major role in the liberation war, and therefore then want to have a go at ruling. So if we're waiting for the all those who were in any way involved in the liberation war, we may have to wait another 30, maybe 40 years before the last one of them is buried. But of course, these liberation war heroes have got a way of regenerating themselves. As we can see with Mnangagwa, he's already trying to groom his own close relatives to become key players in Zimbabwe politics. Some may even go to the extent of saying he's trying to establish his own dynasty, just as Mugabe tried to establish his own dynasty. So if we are serious about ending the Zanu-PF dictatorship by waiting for the old guard to die, then we are not going to see any change. And I can tell you now, the opposition, as is presently constituted, they have given up the fight to implement any meaningful reforms. They wasted their golden opportunity to do so during the GNU when they had the trump cards. Now Zanu-PF has the trump cards. So this issue of the people blindly following somebody like Nelson Chamisa, who has already has got a track record showing clearly that he is corrupt and incompetent. The MDC CCC failed to implement even one meaningful reform in the 23 years, and they've been participating in these flawed elections to give Zanu-PF legitimacy. It really beggars belief. We really cannot afford this kind of madness. I can't overemphasize that. The Greeks were right, the ancient Greeks were right. Democracy, as defined as the government of the people, for the people, by the people, can only work when the people themselves are educated, knowledgeable, and they're diligent at holding those in power to account. I think those qualities are totally absent in the Zimbabwe electorate. If they can still consider somebody like Nelson Chamisa the best foot forward for the country, after all these years of failure to implement even one meaningful reform, participating in flawed elections to give the regime legitimacy, it beggars belief. What else does he have to do before you realize that you need a better leader? The tragedy is, of course, Zimbabwe will not get out of this hole without stopping Zanu-PF rigging the elections. And they're not going to stop Zanu-PF rigging the elections without implementing the reforms. And they're not going to get the reforms implemented until we have got a competent opposition that will implement those reforms. And therefore, then to continue putting a failed and corrupt and incompetent opposition is to shoot yourself in the foot. The tragedy for Zimbabwe is we have got an electorate that really has struggled to understand even some of the basic issues like reforms, free, fair, and credible elections. And therefore, then they do not understand that the opposition, the primary purpose of the opposition, is to implement the reforms to stop Zanu-PF rigging the elections. And so we are now caught in this situation, and Zanu-PF is, of course, exploiting it. That is the tragedy of Zimbabwe. Before I close, I just read a few comments here from some of the viewers out there. Here's one comment from Charles. He says, it's not weakness. Start your own party and see if people will follow you. Well, if people follow me blindly without looking at what is it I'm offering, then it is still weakness. It doesn't matter. It's not just me or Chamisa or anybody else. As long as they've got an electorate that will just follow people blindly, somebody like Chamisa, who has already proven that he's corrupt and incompetent, we are not getting anywhere here. We are talking of an electorate that should be well educated, knowledgeable, and diligent. Anyone can exploit an ignorant, naive, and gullible electorate. And therefore, then my starting my own party so that I could exploit the same weaknesses is not solving anything. The country is not going to get any better for it. General, another comment here from Mnemo. He says, why are you attacking Chamisa always? It is, Mnemo, this is a common comment I've heard so many times. Why is it that when you say Chamisa has failed to implement the democratic reforms, it's considered to be attacking him? Isn't that a fact that he has indeed failed to implement reforms? Isn't it a fact that Chamisa has indeed been participating in flawed elections, knowing fully well that they are flawed, and knowing fully well that by participating he was giving Zanu-PF legitimacy, but he has been doing it out of greed? Why is saying that the truth considered to be attacking Chamisa? I think the main problem comes back to what I was talking about, that we've got an electorate that really have got no idea what constitutes a healthy and functioning democracy. A well-educated, knowledgeable, and diligent electorate is a fundamental requirement. And that electorate must diligently hold those in power to account. In this case here, to say I'm attacking Chamisa, it only means we are defending Chamisa. You are the one who's defending Chamisa. And not only defending Chamisa, defending or denying the truth in defense of Chamisa. How that is helping get Zimbabwe out of this mess beggars belief. At this rate, Zimbabwe is going nowhere. That I can tell you now. We are stuck. Without a knowledgeable electorate, Zimbabwe is not getting out of this mess. I just show another comment here. Nelson is not talking about the death of those in the ruling party, but he means the death of Triple C. Well, maybe that's what he's talking about. But whether he's talking about those still in Triple C or MD or Zanu-PF, it's neither here or there. The point here is he's accepting that there will be no change until those people die. We have wasted the last 23 years when we should have had change if they implemented the reforms. But again, it's only underlining the very point I was trying to make, that we've got an electorate that is failing to see the real issues, the policies, and discuss those. Instead, we are bogged down in discussing individuals. Zimbabwe is not going to get out of this economic and political mess as long as we have got an electorate that is so ignorant and naive and gullible that they consider somebody like Chamisa, who has already proven that he is corrupt and incompetent, and they still consider him to be infallible demigod. That is the level of ignorance that we are facing here. As long as we've got an electorate that is so naive and ignorant, Zimbabwe is not getting out of this mess. That is my main message. to everybody tonight. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll meet again tomorrow, 6 o'clock. Same position, same site. Good night, everybody.